This is Israel at War. I'm Steve Conover. It's been over 2 months since Hamas invaded Israel on the morning of October 7th. Today I'm joined by Steve Herzig, the Friends of Israel's Vice President of North American Ministries. Steve has been with our ministry for over 45 years. He and his staff teach and facilitate FOI Equip, a free online learning resource the Friends of Israel provides. Steve has taught for years about the anti-Semitism the Jewish people endured throughout history, and more recently in the 20th century leading up to the Holocaust. Thank you for being with us, Steve.
Hey, great to be here, Steve.
We're about 60 days or so since October 7th, and one thing we've seen are pundits on both sides that are using the terms genocide or modern-day Holocaust. Who has the right to use that language?
Well, I would say for this October 7th event and the things that have followed, none of them have the right to say it's the Holocaust. And the reason is pretty simple. There are certain comparisons you can make, or similarities, I think. But the Holocaust was a unique event. 6 million Jews, 1.2 million children targeted by a superpower country that created a war and killed that many people who were defenseless. The difference on October 7th was, although the crimes were just as heinous, war crimes, terrible, awful things that took place, but there was no nation of Israel during the Holocaust. There's a nation of Israel. They were attacked in Israel. There was an army that Israel had to respond. Again, the terrible things that happened, but one lasted for, what do you want to say, a day or 2 days as far as the actual attack on the part of Hamas on the Jewish people. But the Holocaust, Adolf Hitler came into power in 1933 and started all kinds of things against the Jewish people. The Nuremberg laws in 1935, and then, of course, World War II with the invasion of Poland. So that lasted until 1945, targeting Jewish people only. We forget about the folks from Thailand who were attacked along with Israelis. Now, not nearly the same number, but this was an attack in Israel against the nation of Israel, mainly Jewish people, but entirely different, I believe, than the actual Holocaust. Genocide? No. War crimes? Terrible things? Absolutely.
So the evil that we saw October 7th and the taking of hostages and the brutality, what is at the root of that evil that would be similar to what we saw in the Holocaust?
Well, you know, here we could talk about the Holocaust and October 7th in the same way. What motivated Adolf Hitler and those that followed him against the Jewish people? There's the war you could see and the war you didn't see. The same thing October 7th. The attack you saw and the attack you're not seeing. And Steve, we're seeing it every day. It's called anti-Semitism, and it's satanic. There is a war that is going on that we do not see. And it's the only way you can measure or identify why are the Jewish people picked upon. With no nation, they're scattered people, specifically mostly German and Polish. There's certainly French and others. But picking on them when they were no threat to the German people. Israel is a sliver of land, 10,000 square miles, surrounded by nations that have literally millions upon millions of Muslims and Arabs, and yet they're always the centerpiece for trouble. How is that? I believe the only way you can answer that, Steve, truly, is to think about what Paul wrote about when we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And I think Satan's desire to first prevent the Messiah from coming, which he tried to do, then to prevent him from going to the cross when he was here, and now to prevent him from coming back. Because, Steve, we know that in order for Jesus to return, according to his own word and based on his name, he has to come back to his own people, and he has to come back to his land. And that's the land that's being picked upon. That's the, it's weird. I was watching, I don't know if, did you watch any of the 3 big presidents of the institutions of Harvard, MIT, and forgot the others. Oh, University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Not very far from here.
Very close.
They asked them, will you condemn the words of the students who are saying genocide to the Jews? And they wouldn't do it. Steve, these are PhDs. They're head of our three major universities, and they could not look the Congress folks in the eye and say, we condemn this. People are walking around saying, I don't understand this. Well, I think we at Friends of Israel do. At least I could say I do. It's satanic. There's this satanic blindness that makes an exception somehow for the Jewish people, and it's horrible. What we saw October 7th was just the most despicable things. They're calling it Black Shabbat Massacre. That's what it's being called. And I think that's really a great way to identify it because the Holocaust is unique. A massacre is awful. It's terrible. But it's not the same as the Holocaust.
I think one thing that illustrates the spiritual battle is the fact that there are, 12 or 13 million Jewish people in the world among 8 billion, and the level of attacks on this very small population within the entire community of the world, wherever they are, they're under anti-Semitic attacks.
Well, Steve, just talking to our Friends of Israel reps around the world, in France, our workers have told us that Jewish people no longer wear identifying garb. So the men take off their yarmulkes. That goes on in London as well. It's in this country as well. We just had one of our representatives, Bruce Scott, tell us when he was visiting in Minnesota, where he used to live. He went to a gal who's his friend, who was his neighbor, and the police came to her house and said, remove your, they weren't forcing her, but they said, remove your mezuzah, it's dangerous. That's happening in the United States. Calls to take your yarmulkes off when you cross the street in New York or in Paris because somebody might run you over in the car. It's unheard of. And there's so many Jewish people who are afraid. We're delivering Hanukkah baskets this time of year at Friends of Israel and doing it everywhere. And I just was doing that and was with a Jewish friend of ours, of Friends of Israel's. And he just said, I'm hoping that we don't become like these other nations. He said, I never thought I would say something like that. So, Steve, these are really serious days, but they're exciting days. As bad as it might be, and it's bad, it's great opportunity for us who support Israel to stand with them, and the Jewish people are responding in a great way. One of our workers, Director of Canada, Rob Gottslig, sent me a video of him in Ottawa in a Stand with Israel rally. And he was able to get rabbis. He introduced himself as a person with the Friends of Israel. Probably before October 6th, they might not have been willing to interview with him.
Yeah.
But they're looking for friends, and they're finding friends in people like us, and they want to embrace us. So it's negative, it's terrible, it's awful, but as I like to say, the darker the night, the more glorious the sunrise.
I love that. So those of us that are Friends of Israel, those that are watching, they're Christians in their communities, in their neighborhoods, maybe even online with their family, friends. What should we be communicating about the plight that the Jewish people find themselves?
I think it's simple, but it's courageous. Because to be honest, Steve, some of our very own donors are afraid. And they're not sure what to do. I talked with one lady who heard about a rally, and she's single, and she was afraid to go. And I don't blame her, because there can be the other side, and rallies create trouble. But I'm telling you, there are great opportunities. Here at Friends of Israel, we have a Stand with Israel website. You go on foi.org, you can stand with Israel, you can voice your support as you type it in, you can give. You can put a menorah during Hanukkah. Identifying with the Jewish people is a courageous thing to do, and will even give you that feeling, hey, I'm not Jewish, but if I do this, I have a small feeling of what it might be like to be Jewish living with this kind of persecution, anti-Semitism that is real. So there are ways to help and minister, standing with Israel, praying for the peace of Jerusalem. You don't even have to do that in public. Do that in your own closet. Psalm 122, verse 6 says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We could do that. And Jewish people will tell you, thank you. We need prayer.
Great insights, practical insights. Thank you so much, Steve.
Hey, thank you.
Steve's unique perspective on this issue is helpful as we navigate how to talk about these issues with family and friends in person and in our online conversations. Israel and the Jewish people continue to need our help. If you want to stand with us as we stand with Israel with a financial contribution, visit foi.org/standwithisrael.